Hello everybody, welcome to Totally Tabled. My name is Shaggy, and today I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm revisiting an old list that I made, my top 10 games from 2021. This is a list from 2 years ago, early on in my channel's history. I had just started, I didn't know what I was doing, not that I know what I'm doing now. I made a few mistakes, and just things have changed. I've played more games. My feelings on some games have changed, so the list is quite a bit different now. My future top 10 of the year videos have always been solo games. So for this revisiting, I'm going to make this my top 10 solo games, and that really only affects one game that was on the original list, The Crew. I absolutely love The Crew. I believe that there's some fan-made solo mode that I haven't tried, but I'm going to be taking it off this list for the revisit. For now, let's just dive right into the list, and at the end of the video, I'll discuss any of the games that are missing and why they're not there. Number 10 used to be Meadow. That has fallen down to my number 11 to make room for a new number 10, Welcome to the Moon. This is a roll and write game, which is a standalone sequel to an older roll and write just called Welcome to. You still draw out 3 cards. Each card has a number and a symbol, and you're going to select one card to use the number and one card to use the symbol. And then you're going to record that number onto your sheet, and how you record it and where will be different depending on what symbol you chose. But in general, you're usually trying to make the numbers go in ascending order. The cool thing with Welcome to the Moon is there's an entire campaign built in here with, I think, 8 different maps that are very different. There's just a load of game in here because of all these different maps. In addition to that, there's a great solo mode where you choose a solo opponent card, and there's different ones that will give you different difficulty levels. And the opponent behaves a little bit differently depending on, which scenario you're playing. But they'll have various, bonuses that you can get or penalties against you. But the really cool thing is whichever of those 3 cards you don't pick, that then goes to the solo opponent, and they're going to score that card. And so there's this extra layer of decision making. You may pick a card not because that's the best card for you, but just because you don't want the solo opponent to get it and score it. I've only fairly recently gotten into Welcome to the Moon. I haven't played all the scenarios yet. This is why it wasn't on the list 2 years ago. And honestly, this isn't even a genre that I particularly like. These roll and writes and flip and writes, I'm sort of done with them for the most part. I don't really need any more, and they keep coming out. But this one really works for me because it retains that sort of simple nature, which is kind of what I want for one of these styles of games. Definitely one of my favorite roll and writes of all time. That is Welcome to the Moon. Number 9 is Cascadia. This was number 7 last time. Cascadia is a very approachable, family-friendly tile-laying game that I really like because it's not that punishing. It features sort of 2 levels of tile laying. You start by drafting a landscape tile and a connected animal token from the display. You then must add a tile to your growing land, hoping to create large regions of the same terrain type. That's going to give you points at the end of the game. After that, you place the animal token on a tile that will support it. And each different animal scores in a different way depending on which cards you've selected at the beginning of the game. So, for example, you might be trying to create pairs of bears or salmon in a long straight line, something like that. And since you can select different cards, you can have different games each time. This game really is just so casual and so simple. It's really easy to introduce to new people. It's really one of my go-to games if I'm going to be playing with gamers without a lot of experience. And I actually live in the Pacific Northwest, so this theme really appeals to me. So there you go, number 9, Cascadia. Number 8 is Bullet Heart, which was number 6 last time. This is a game that just keeps popping up on my lists. I'm not sure why. I think it's just because it's so satisfying. It's relatively simple. You're just drawing these tokens out of a bag and placing them onto your board. Matching the color, and then the number represents how far down it goes. And you don't want these tokens to reach the bottom. So your board's filling up, and kind of like a tower defense game, really, you're trying to manipulate these tokens to get them into certain configurations based on cards you have so that you can clear them off your board. You're just trying to get these tokens off your board. But the only way to do that is with these cards that show different shapes, and you're using energy to manipulate the tokens, using these special abilities that are different depending on which character you use. And the characters are quite different. They have, quite different gameplay. So there's just a ton of replayability. There's a ton of stuff to discover. At the heart, you just have this really satisfying and fun pulling tokens out of a bag, and then this spatial puzzle. It's really my jam. That is something that I love in games, and you don't see it that often. This game really does feel unique. And I know not everyone loves this sort of anime, colorful artwork and stuff. I wouldn't want it in every game, but I think it works here. I'm glad to see that it's getting some expansions moving forward. And I should mention that there's actually 2 different ways to play solo. 2 different modes, which are quite different and both really fun. So yeah, great game. Number 8, Bullet Heart. Number 7 is Dune Imperium, which was number 1 on the last list. Yikes. So what accounts for this major fall? Well, this is a casualty of the list changing from just a top 10 games list to now being a top 10 solo games list. Because for me, I love Dune Imperium as a multiplayer game. I've had incredible games of this at 2 and at 4. I don't think I've played it at 3. As a solo game, I really, really like it. And I know that the larger solo community, loves this game. So I'm a bit of the weird one here. But it's at number 7 because this is a fantastic deck building game that also incorporates worker placement. You're drafting cards and adding to your deck, just like a traditional deck builder. But the cards that you're playing are also determining where you can place a worker onto the board. So that means as you're drafting these cards and building your deck, you really need to be conscious of making sure those cards are going to let you play your workers where you want them to go later in the game. I've had many a game where that really trips me up, and at the end, I just don't have the cards I need for the worker placement part. And I love that synergy. And there's a really cool system where the cards that you don't play at the end of the round, you can play for a special benefit at the bottom. And I think if you're a Dune fan, you'll enjoy some of the thematic touches that are in the game. But even if you don't care about the theme, the game just works. Definitely one of the best games from 2021. That is Dune Imperium. Number 6 is Cartographers Heroes, which was number 8 last time. Yay, something has finally gone up the list. And wow, that's the second flippin' right on this list. This is my favorite of the genre. I think I like it so much because the theme of being a fantasy cartographer just really tickles me. I love that theme. And then you actually get to make a map. You're physically making the map. It's so thematic. The most thematic roll and write of all time? It has to be. This game makes me wish I was a better artist. You're really just doing tile laying. You flip over some cards, you pick a shape and a terrain type, and you add it to your map. And this game has that really cool scoring thing. I can't remember if I first saw it here, or I think I first saw it in Isle of Skye, where you have 4 different scoring cards, like A, B, C, and D. And then during the first scoring phase, you're going to score A and B. And then in the second one, you're going to score B and C. And then C and D, and then A and D. And that's really cool because it means that you can, build toward a future scoring. Or you can hit one of the scorings really hard and then it's not going to score anymore, so you have to pivot and move on to something else. And Cartographers Heroes adds some cool enemies and heroes that you add to your board that sort of mess things up. And also there's a bunch of different maps that you can play on that have little special rules here and there that just changes things up just a little bit. So again, just like with Welcome to the Moon, there's just a lot of replayability and variability here if you like it. So there you go. Number 6, Cartographers Heroes. Number 5 is Marvel United X-Men, which was also number 5 last time. This is a simple and family-friendly cooperative game that is so quick. It always surprises me when I play this just how quick this game is. We're talking half an hour to 45 minutes tops. You're going to pick 3 heroes and a villain. And that villain's going to come with like a deck of minions. And there's so many expansions for this game. You have so many characters that you can choose from. But then you're going to build a board of 6 random locations. Each location has like a little special action that you can take on it. And you're going to build this circular board. And then you're just going to start playing, trying to defeat a certain number of minions and bad guys and save enough potential victims so that you can then go after the boss and attack them, deplete them of their health, and win. And the real heart of the game is each character that you have has their own special deck, which is mostly the same, but there's slight differences. Each character has like a little special ability. And on your turn, you're just going to play a card and you're going to get to activate all the icons on there as well as the previously played card. So in that way, you can really cooperate with the other characters. You may play a card not because you necessarily need it, but because the person coming after you could really use it. And that's such a simple but really impactful mechanism for a cooperative game. It really encourages cooperation. And when you're playing it as a solo game, it's fun because it just really gives you something to think about. How can I set up this other character? I'm personally so done with these Marvel and superhero games. I just want it to stop, and it never will. But this is one where I don't get tired of it. This is kind of my superhero game. Anyway, that's number 5, Marvel United X-Men. Number 4 is new to the list. It's Rove. I talk about this button-shy micro game a ton. It's my favorite of these wallet games, probably because it's another spatial puzzle game, and I just love spatial puzzles. So you play as this really cute robot. You put out 6 cards on the table. They're modules. And then you're just going to be spending these energy cards in order to move these modules around to match some pattern that's on a card. In that way, it does sort of feel a little bit like Bullet Heart, except for here, each module moves in a very specific way, right? Some might just move orthogonally, some might move just diagonally, some might push other modules as they go, some might have to leap over other modules, stuff like that. So the puzzle is really about trying to figure out how to get these modules to move properly, and what's the order that you're going to move them in order to get them where they need to go. Each module also has like a one-time special ability that you can use like once per game that you're going to need to use to get you out of a jam, because it's really hard to get these things to move properly. But deciding when to use that, making sure you're using it at just the right time to maximize the benefit, really good stuff. Really a ton of brain-burnery gameplay in just 18 cards. And then if you start to get some of the expansions, they add these little twists to the gameplay that are really fun. Wonderful game. That's number 4, Rove. Number 3 is The Loop, which was number 3 last time. It's almost a joke how much I talk about this game. I feel like I'm sort of the lone crazy champion of this game, and everyone's just staring at me like I'm a lunatic. This is one of my favorite cooperative games. I think it actually plays best solo, and it's incredibly underrated, which just blows my mind. The thing is, I talk about this game so much, I'm not going to go into it too much right now. I'll direct you to my top 10 medium complexity solo board games list that I did less than a month ago. It's also on at least 4 or 5 other lists that I've made, and I've done a full playthrough of it. I haven't mentioned this yet, but every game on this list except for Welcome to the Moon, I've done a full solo playthrough of. So check out all of those. That's a much better way of figuring out if these games are going to be right for you. But The Loop is just so wonderful because it's thinky, it's tricky, and it lets you be really clever. You get to pull off these really epic turns. You can do some really awesome combo-rific card play. It feels really satisfying when you just pull off like a super turn and you just do all this amazing stuff. And it's got a cube tower. And every single game with a cube tower is really good. I don't know why, it just happens that way. Don't let the quirky, colorful artwork deter you from trying this game out, because it's fantastic. That's my number 3. As good as it was 2 years ago, The Loop. Number 2 is completely new to the list. It's Sleeping Gods. There's a lot of games that have tried to do this sort of adventure sandboxy thing, and Sleeping Gods is the one that has worked for me. It partly has to do with Ryan Laukait's artwork just transporting you to this wonderful, unfamiliar world. You have this great, diverse cast of characters that are on your ship, each with their own sort of personalities and abilities. You're sailing around and just having these really fascinating encounters. The stories that emerge are entertaining. They let you make decisions that have actual consequences. You get items and upgrades, and your characters get to grow and change. And I personally think the combat system is unique, just a great little puzzle, and I don't find that it interrupts the flow of the game at all. I really love it. The fact that this is a completely open world and you can just sail off in any direction. Just do whatever you want, and you'll encounter all these quests and secrets and puzzles. You'll find treasures, you'll encounter monsters. This game does exploration and that sense of discovery better than pretty much any game I've ever played. That's my number 2, Sleeping Gods. And the number 1 solo game from 2021 is new to the list. It's Final Girl. Final Girl is a solo-only dice-driven survival game that lets you experience whatever horror trope you desire. Every one of these different scenario boxes that you can get has like a different location and a different villain, each with unique rules. And each one of these boxes really nails the atmosphere and the theme. And because this game is incredibly dice-driven, there's a ton of luck in the game, and that's really going to turn a lot of people off. In fact, on paper, it probably should turn me off as well. To do actions, you're playing a card, and then you have to roll dice to see how well you can activate that action, if at all. And you can absolutely get screwed by the dice. The reason it works for me here is because this is a survival game, a highly thematic one. And the dice contribute to the tension and the cinematic storytelling that is required for a survival game. A lot of players won't be able to tolerate this, but a key mechanism in a survival game is having to face the inherent unfairness of life. Bad luck is an important part of a survival game, and every great survival game has it. From Robinson Crusoe, This War of Mine, Frostpunk Nemesis, the threat of bad luck ruining your plans is an important part of the experience. And here I really feel that the cinematic story that the game tells makes every bad roll as satisfying as the good ones. Sure, it can be frustrating at times, but that's part of it. That's part of what this game is doing, and it just works for me. I think Final Girl is a very special game, and that's why it's my number 1 solo game of 2021. So there you go, a total of 4 completely new games on the list. Now, if you watch that older list, you're going to realize that there's one big game missing, and that is The Lost Ruins of Arnak. That was number 4 on the old list, and it's completely missing from this one, and the reason why is simple. It's a game from 2020. That was a bit of an error I did last time, and that's why it's not on the list this time. Another game that sometimes people will include in a 2021 list is Ark Nova. For me, I think that should belong in a 2022 list. Again, things are a little confusing with exactly when games come out and the different versions and all this stuff. Another game that I really like, For Northwood, I also consider that to be a 2022 game. And then there's 2 big solo games that could have been on the list, but aren't because I haven't played them enough. And that is Hadrian's Wall and Imperium Classics. Both of those are extremely popular, but I just need to get them to the table more. So who knows, maybe if I revisit this list in 5 years, those will be on. But there we go. Are there any other games that I missed? Please let me know in the description below. But until next time, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.